Hello, everyone, and welcome to Distortion Gems, episode number 4. I'm here, Kevin, and the star of the show, Deke, is
No
here.
stars. No stars.
The number one star of the show, Deke, is here. And this episode, we're just, I don't know, Deke's going to show us some books.
Mhm.
And I haven't told Deke what I'm going to do yet, but the clue is on my shirt.
Whoa, well, there we go.
So I'm gonna go through my Iron Maiden collection. So, Deke has 4 books, and I got a group of 3 things to show. Yep. So 3 groups of things to show. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Right. It sounds almost like an episode of Sesame Street.
It's something like that, yeah. So I guess I'm doing this in dedication to Paul Diano, who passed away. Yeah. Is that yesterday? Man, so much stuff has happened. Was that yesterday or the day before? Man,
I think it was yesterday. And you know, that's the thing. I mean, those first two Maiden albums, the self-titled Killers and the Made in Japan EP. I mean, they really threw down that gauntlet, you know, of laid down the foundation. So when Dickinson came in '82, they were just, their trajectory was just going that way. And good legacy to be leaving behind, you know, is for sure, because a lot of people hold Killers in very high regard. You know, some people like it as their favorite Maiden album, and fair enough. You know, it's almost punkish metal to me.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If we're gonna start with that, then if we're gonna talk about it, might as well just start showing. Here's the very first Iron Maiden album. The debut. So Paul Diano, in case you don't know, I don't know why you're watching this if you don't know, but he was the original singer for Iron Maiden. Yeah, he was on the first 2 studio albums, and the EP, live EP, Made in Japan. This came out in 1980. Yeah, and they were a bit of a different band. I don't think I'm saying anything bad about Paul when I say that the band really came into their own when Bruce Dickinson had joined the band. Mm-hmm. This album to me is very in rock, Deep Purple in rock influence. Like, I know that they were a huge fan of that, and I could definitely hear a lot of the influence on here, and not only in Paul's voice, but just in the song structure and everything like that. But yeah, it's a good one. I like this one. I don't have a hate on for any of the Paul Diano albums. And Killers. I gave these both a spin today in honor of them while I was driving around doing some errands. But not these, but on the phone. But anyways, so these are both reissues, of course, because most of my collection is reissues, because I wasn't around in 1980 collecting Iron Maiden on vinyl. I was still in my Sesame Street phase in 1980. I do have my Cookie Monster album, if you do want me to show that.
You know what, Kev? Can you just do me a favor and show the back covers of the first 2 records? Because you can just see how advanced they went, and even in their live show. Like, look at the one on the left. Looks like they're playing a club, and now the Killers, it looks like a little bigger place, perhaps a theater. I mean, you could already see they were already starting to shoot their way to the top. And
you got the club there, and the theater there. Yeah.
And if anybody, that was my entry point into Iron Maiden, was the Killers album in the summer of 1981 here in Thunder Bay, when me and my buddy Muck went into a record store, and we had our allowance, and on the rack there, they had a new wave of British heavy metal. Never even heard that term before.
Right.
And they had Leopard, On Through the Night, and Killers, and we never heard either band because we were 14.
Mm-hmm.
So what sold us obviously was the covers and the back covers, because the back cover of Def Leppard, On Through the Night, is a live shot of the band playing. I think you can see behind them, it's AC/DC's gear. So they were opening for AC/DC at the time. And when I flipped that back cover of Killers, I mean, it impacted me as much as the front cover of Derek Riggs's fantastic artwork. So, so I've been following them for a lot of years now. So that was what a great starting point. And I never heard metal like that, you know? So
yeah, I don't even know if I would classify the first album. Maybe the second album would be metal, but the first album is more, yeah, it's just like it's its own thing. It's kind of more like a Deep Purple rock kind of thing. Definitely metal at the time, but not post. Like I think the term metal has kind of switched in the 80s, you know, especially with the thrash bands and that. It became more of a, like, to me, that it's more of a progressive rock, really. Hard progressive rock, I think, anyways.
Yeah. I mean, Remember Tomorrow, was it Strange World? You know, they got different on that debut, you know, different textures, you know, like it just wasn't straight.
Yeah, there were some, like Charlotte the Harlot's pretty, you know,
well,
rocking song. Yeah, but yeah,
Prowler, love Prowler.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That's always wild to me how when you tell those stories from that era and how you wouldn't find out about a band change until you go buy the album and you flip it over and the singer's not on there. He's not on, they changed singers, you know.
You got it, man.
You know, like even in the late 80s, early 90s, like at least we had the 24-hour music channels. They would have news on the music news on the channels, and then like the rudimentary internet even would have information on the bands, like, you know, like we knew when White Zombie broke up, or when Pantera was having issues, or when Wurzel left Motorhead or whatever. Like we would know that ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like you wouldn't know until you bought the album. That's so wild, with information being so accessible like it is today.
And back then, the music magazines, the North American ones, like especially Circus and Hit Parader, were almost 2-3 months behind.
Right.
So the only one that was up to date was Kerrang from England, and that would come out every 2 weeks. And there was one store in town here in T-Bay that would get Kerrang, and they would get 5 copies, and there would be about 50 people from not only from my high school trying to get down there to snag a copy. So it was like you'd have to skip class and just time it right, and hopefully the guy was putting the magazine on the rack, because they were up to date with everything. That's where I read about a lot of stuff for the first time, and then 3 months later I'd read it in Circus. Oh, old news, you know. So yeah, it was a real different era. And you know, when you get to Show and Number of the Beast, that's the perfect example for me, is right there on that back cover. I had no idea.
I might as well just get right to it. There you go. Here's
I had no idea that Di'Anno was gone. And then you flip the back cover, and when I saw that at Music City here in Thunder Bay, I'm like, who's the dude with the long hair holding the torch, and where's Paul Di'Anno? And then once I read the side, I thought, well, he's got long hair, he must be all right. And then once I heard Invaders, I was in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's very. This is a reissue, 180 gram.
Nice.
Black vinyl. Yeah, I've bought all these within the past like 5 years or so, just whenever they went on sale on Amazon, when records used to go on sale on Amazon, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
It was a great time to be, you know, when you pull up those records, it just takes me right back to that time of discovery. I mean, I became like a lot of people probably my age became Maiden fanboys back then because of the artwork. I mean, 1982, I mean, I've talked about this before. I mean, think of some of the album covers back in 82. You know, you have Maiden with Number of the Beast, you have Scorpions with Blackout, you have Priest with Screaming for Vengeance. Even I love the Hatch, Coney Hatch with that self-titled debut. I mean, the Insane Asylum cover that Coney Hatch did for the debut. I mean, all that artwork pulled you in before you even heard the music. So smart marketing, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that's all they had a lot of times to sell the album, was just the album cover.
Very true.
I came to all this music later on in life. I'll get to the story a little bit later on when anyways, I'll get to my Iron Maiden story a little later.
Okay.
But So let's switch gears now, and Deke, you're going to show us one of your books. So are these recent pickups, or these are
recent pickups there, Mr. Kevin.
Okay. Well, I know you don't like the word pickup. These are recent purchases.
Yeah, I was just busting your balls about that pickup, but it's just taken a whole life upon its own. But yeah, so anyways, I love physical copies of books. I'm not an iPad, reader of books on any kind of device. I tried it. I didn't like it. I need old school books. Or old school style physical copies. So one of them I got recently is this book. It's called Raise Your Glasses. And it's written by a couple of guys who do a podcast. It's called the Shout It Out Loud podcast. And this book is 600 pages of every Kiss song Kevin would want to know about.
Wow.
So what they did was, and it's basically these guys, they reached out to guys like Bruce Kulick from Kiss, Desmond Child, Mitch Wiseman, who wrote stuff with Gene Simmons, a bunch of people, bunch of musicians, believe it or not. What's the Canadian comedian's name? Russell
Peters?
Russell Peters is a Kiss fan. He's in here.
Wow.
A lot of different people, and they give all their perspectives on each Kiss song. So the cool thing about this book is you can open it up anywhere, and you can start anywhere. They talked to Holly Knight, who co-wrote a couple of Kiss tracks. They even talked to Ahmet Zappa. It's basically just their perspective. It's just like if you're sitting around with a bunch of your buddies and you're discussing Kiss songs. This is basically the whole concept of this book. It's not endorsed by Kiss or any of that. It's just these guys running a podcast who reached out to people. They even have Gene Simmons in here talking about a couple of songs. I guess that's it for the actual Kiss guys, is Gene and Bruce. I think Ace Frehley, maybe Peter Criss, even a couple of quotes about some stuff. But it's a pretty cool read. It's neat to read other musicians, actors, comedians' perspectives on some songs. So like I said, you can open it up on the second last page, because it doesn't matter. It goes by each album in chronicle order, but you can start anywhere you want. It's not like you're missing out on anything. So I picked this up from Amazon. I think it was about $35. And it's worth it. I found, I'm not going to name names in this book, but some people that are affiliated with working with some members in Kiss, they kind of kiss their ass on some of the tracks that shouldn't really be, no pun intended. So I get it. It's called getting a paycheck. So, but other than that, for the most part, there's no real hard slamming in it. Some people say, yeah, like Gene Simmons writing some of those corny 80s lyrics and whatnot, he gets called out on. But yeah, you know what? Pretty cool read. So, and I haven't even read it all. I've just kind of flipped through it, and if something comes in, I wonder what they, Rock and Roll Over is one of my favorite Kiss albums. So I wonder what they said about some of these songs, and I flip it through. So it's almost more like one of those books you have laying around that you'll occasionally pick up and check out. So that was my number one, buddy. So
cool. So it's every single song that Kiss has put out.
Yeah, every single studio song. They talk about. They don't really do like the greatest hits and stuff. They only talk about the greatest hit sets if there's songs that weren't on other albums, like
right.
Point, smashes and trashes and hits. They talked about the 2 studio songs, which to me weren't very good. Let's Put the X in Sex and You Make Me Rock Hard. Eesh.
That was my first Kiss album and my only Kiss album, because I didn't know I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know what they sound like or anything. So I was like, all right, let's give Kiss a try. And I got Smashes, Hits, and Thrashes, or whatever the heck it was called.
Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits. Yep.
Yeah, and I was like, not for me. Sorry.
No, fair enough.
Okay. Okay. Let's just go through a couple more Iron Maiden albums.
Yes, sir.
My favorite Iron Maiden album is Peace of Mind. So of course I got that.
Very good.
Should need that one. Great artwork on these.
Oh yeah.
And then probably did I got these in the right order here? Let's see. I hope I do. I don't think I do. Power Slave.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. And this one, it's probably the best album cover. it's so intricate. You just spend hours looking at all the little details and everything on there. And people are still finding stuff on this album cover.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing, Cav. Like, I remember Power Slave coming out in September of '84, and that was like probably the second or third week of school for me, and it totally derailed me from getting any homework done. Because every day I wanted to get home and just listen to Power Slave and just absorb that cover. They'd have the Indiana Jones was here in the corner, and you'd find something else the next day. And yeah, it's like you said, it was so much detail in those covers. It was just like a total mind blower. And God bless Steve Harris for writing Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, because I basically nicked that song and did a school English poem report right off his lyrics.
Nice.
Yeah. So, Steve, if you're watching, thank you, sir.
So next I got Deke got me to spend some money. One of the times he came here to Sudbury, he said, you have to get Live After Death. So I didn't have it.
No.
And you were right. I did need this. It's a great double live album. Good times.
And another one with fantastic packaging. I mean, if everybody out there who has it, who should have it, the booklet with how much beer they drank, how many guitar strings they used, picks. I mean, it's all the tour dates, the pictures, the gatefold, the lyrics. I mean, it's
that is one epic gatefold. Like
what a bang on shot that is with the Power Slave Eddie.
Yeah.
And the pyro coming out of his eyes. I mean, that's just, I think it was probably Ross Helfand who took that shot. And, that's an all-time great. That's just like the same picture that Kiss used in Kiss Alive too. Like an impact picture.
Yeah, and even the record sleeves will just have all this intricate artwork and all that, and even lyrics. You don't get lyrics too often on a live album.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the thing. Yeah, like I was down in Sudbury and I saw that in the bins. I think that was Toys R Us, right?
That's right. Yep.
And I said to Kevin, "Do you have this?" And he goes, "No." And I just handed it to him.
Yeah. Well, I assumed you have it, right?
What's that?
You have it, right? Like I assumed you have it.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I got actually. I'm like you. I have all the Maidens now, except for the Blaze Bayley stuff, on reissue, except for Dance of Death and Final Frontier. I got everything else that's been reissued except for I have an original copy of Made in Japan.
Yeah, I you might have noticed I do not have that one. I almost bought it at a record show for $18, and I think there was something wrong with it or something. It just didn't look right, and I was like, that is definitely one that I want to add to the collection.
There was probably something wrong with it because I've never seen Made in Japan that cheap on vinyl.
Yeah, I think that's why it was $18.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just quickly go through two more. Of course, got the Somewhere in Time.
Yeah.
Sci-fi cover on it.
You got her.
Like this one. I actually saw a sealed copy of this on cassette. Guess how much they were asking for that? A cassette copy, still sealed.
Sealed? 75?
You're very close. $70.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I knew it wouldn't be cheap.
I'm like, you know what? I don't need that.
Yeah.
And the last one from the 80s. We got Seventh Son of the Seventh Son.
And that right there is my favorite Maiden album.
It's definitely a good one. It's up there. It's on the good side for me.
But you know what? It's funny you say that. I can tell you that now, and then next week I'll say, you know what? I really like Peace of Mind a little bit better, and then it'll be Somewhere in Time, and then it'll be Seventh Son, and then back to Peace of Mind, Number of the Beast. Yeah, you know, it's hard to really. They're really gelling back in the 80s with their material. That's for sure.
There is really no bad album from them from the 80s, and I gotta say, I also like how they were more concise. I don't know how much of that had to do with the number of members they had in the band at the time versus now, where I think they got too many guitarists, to be honest, and the format, keeping them to a nice crisp 40-45 minutes. I think that was just magic. You know, they were just nice and tight.
Yeah. I know what you're saying, but to me, I'm okay with everything they do, because at some point there's going to come a time when they're not doing it. So
yeah,
you know,
like AC/DC is my favorite band, and I hear people say the same thing about AC/DC. Like, they don't like the new stuff, they don't like the old stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's all great, but I get it. It's just it's not for everybody. Everything's not for everybody. So
no, that's true.
So before we dive into the 90s, let's get to another book.
Okay, so this one I picked up maybe back in September. Another pre-order that I got from, actually all these books I got from Amazon, is a book on Cheap Trick called American Standard: From the Bars to the Budokan and Beyond, written by Ross Warner and a foreword by Mike McCready from Pearl Jam. This is, Cheap Trick. If anybody follows Cheap Trick out there, I mean, I love Cheap Trick, especially their 70s stuff, basically up to 1980, when they did the All Shook Up, and then they kind of one album from 82 was good, but then they obviously went down there for a while. But Ross does a pretty good job here. I mean, if you're interested in, there's a lot of quotes from other interviews done by other interviewers, so he basically pieced a lot of this book together. He did talk to Tom Werman, who produced In Color, Heaven Tonight, Dream Police, and whatnot. And it's pretty interesting. There's a couple pretty cool things in this book that I didn't know about, and one of them is that I Want You to Want Me, the studio version on In Color, the guitar solo was done by a Ghost player. It's not even done by Rick Nielsen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and obviously Cheap Trick, they're quirky guys. They've actually never done an actual bio where they talk about their own stories. I got Robert Lawson's book here, good pal of the show here, called Still Competition, where he reviewed, I've had him on the show before, where he's reviewed every single Cheap Trick album. Doesn't talk about any backstage, on stage. He just talks about their songs, their singles, their albums, where they charted. It's a very great read. And, he even tried to get a copy of the Cheap Trick, and, they're just kind of goofy that way. They don't even want to know about it. But it's like, this guy's not even talking about your personal lives. He's talking about your actual music and whatnot. And, they're kind of guarded that way, and they never really give a straight answer. But there's some pretty cool stuff in here. I mean, back in the late 70s, when John Lennon was making his Double Fantasy record, he had Rick Nielsen and Bunny Carlos show up, and they jammed on a couple of tunes, because Jack Douglas was a Cheap Trick producer off the debut and also the Budokan. He brought them in, but they realized that these tracks are a little too heavy for us right now. And they kind of got discarded for the actual final album, but they supposedly are out there. You can find them. And and how the Budokan album, they didn't want the Budokan album released at all in North America. That's Cheap Trick. That was just supposed to be only for the Japanese market. And they were recording the Dream Police record, and Budokan took off because they were selling so many import copies in North America, the record label said, we got to put this out. And they're like, we don't like the cover. We don't like the sound of it. We don't like the back. We don't like anything. We don't want it out. And they're like, well, you just sold like 25,000 imports here in the States. So they finally, okay, well, whatever, put it out. And that album kept selling and selling and selling. And Dream Police basically sat in the can for like a year and a bit.
Wow.
Yeah. Like it was pushed way back. And I guess, you know, it was even starting to grind on them because they wanted to play some of those songs. And
right.
finally started playing some of the Dream Police songs that nobody had heard because I guess supposedly Rick Nielsen would say, yeah, this is a song coming off our next album, which you'll probably hopefully hear in the next 48 years. Like he would just say shit like that from the stage. So yeah, a lot of cool tidbits that Ross pulled out of here. But like I said, he didn't do a lot of interviewing. A lot of these are pulled from interviews from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. But you know what? I'm always up for a good read about classic rock act. And until Cheap Trick puts out their own book, then, you know, if you're interested, it's a good read, man. American Standard.
There's nothing wrong with an author taking from old interviews and that. No. Like, you're basically condensing everyone for the reader so they don't have to search, 12 different sources. You can just get it all in one package.
Yeah.
And just to, like, I do find a lot of bands of that era of like Cheap Trick, AC/DC does this too, where they're very flippant in interviews. And I find that what they're doing is they're basically taking their cues from the Beatles, because the Beatles used to do the same thing, right? They would come over, they'd give all these funny answers and all that. And to them, that was cool. That was just so cool not to give the straight answer, right? And they've stuck to that. Plus, it's not, even today, like stuff, when it's written, you are not getting a lot of the nuance or the cadence or of how something is said. And I find that a lot of fans read into things that's really crazy, and like even when they give a flippant answer, a lot of fans read into things and take it at face value,
Right. Yeah.
And so I could see why a lot of them, like, they just don't want to do the interviews and that. Plus, you're always asked the same stupid questions that you're answering over and over again. So I kind of get it,
True. And it's funny. That's funny you say like the Beatles, because Cheap Trick does have a Beatles influence in them for sure.
Oh, didn't they do? Was it Sgt. Pepper's? Did they redid the whole album?
They did the re-album. Yeah. They've done back in the late 70s, early 80s. They did a quarter version of Day Tripper.
Right.
They're totally influenced. So good comparison there with how the Beatles talked to the press. Cheap Trick was just basically
they're just basically doing the Beatles thing because it was just cool to them. It's
Yeah, and if you even go back to the debut Cheap Trick album, they call their bio for that debut album a band with no past. And they had a past. They started in the late 60s with various members and stuff, but they kind of made it seem that that was their whole PR move. Yeah. And they wouldn't give straight answers in interviews. So yeah, quirky bunch, but talented bunch, that's for sure. So,
absolutely. Yep.
Great read.
Okay, let's go. Let's head into the 90s now. Like for me, Iron Maiden was always like after the 80s, I kind of ignored them. I didn't really listen to them too much or anything. But then when I was out and about this past summer, I had found on CD both of their two early 90s releases, No Prayer for Dying and Fear of the Dark. Now, I will say that No Prayer for Dying, I would extend my cutoff of Iron Maiden. I would extend it into 1990. I would count it because this was actually, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was pretty good, very solid.
Cool.
Album. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought. It's not like, if I was to rank all the early albums, this would probably be at the lower end, but still very much worth listening to. Fear of the Dark, not so much my thing. We're already getting too long even though it's only like maybe about an extra 10 minutes, it's like it just goes on. There's some good songs on it. I can't find the one that I like on it right now because I'm blanking on the name. But there was some good songs on it. But yeah, but overall, I was just kind of like not as good.
And you know that, and that's the thing too, Kev. When you realize like they were on album tour cycle for what by that point 10, 11 years, 12 years. I mean, something's got to give in the creativeness at some point. I mean, I agree. Like No Prayer for the Dying, I liked it because it was kind of a stripped back Maiden sound. You know, they ditched the synths from the previous two studio records, and they kind of went like more back to basics with Holy Smoke and Tail Gunner and Public Enema #1. And yeah, you know, good, like you said, there's a lot of good stuff on there.
Yeah, like Seventh Son is it's a very polished album, you know. Like Can I Play with Madness, like that is a very almost a lot of pop influence in that song, you know. That was meant to be like, let's try to get something on the radio from Iron Maiden. Yeah, and this was definitely go back, but plus it was kind of, well, I don't know, 1990, I don't know how much the synth was already starting to fall out of favor with music, you know. Stuff was getting back to, a lot of it was getting back to a more 70s sound, you know, rock and roll driven sound. Okay, now believe it or not, when I was in my first year of college in 1996 or 1990, when did the heck did this come out? 1993? Was that it? 90? I was in the early 90s anyways. I was in my first year of college, and I had not heard any Iron Maiden at all.
Wow.
I didn't have much music. I didn't get much music until 1994. And it was like the Power Hour was, I remember I watched 2 episodes of the Power Hour, and then they cut it down to the Power 30. It was already on the way out. I remember watching the last episode of the Power Hour. I'm like, finally I get to watch Power Hour, and there it goes. Now the Power 30.
It sucks being a young guy back in 94.
Well, you know, and my parents were just cheap. They didn't want to pay for extra for cable and all that stuff. But I didn't really have any friends that were into heavy metal. They were more into, you know, Tragically Hip and that kind of stuff. It wasn't so it was I'd have to pay money to, you know, to hear these bands like the Kiss, you know, like if I want to hear Kiss, I had to go to the store, spend $20 on an album, which was a lot of money. So Iron Maiden, hadn't heard any Iron Maiden except for, I can't remember what song they did on Beavis and Butthead, because I would get bootleg copies of Beavis and Butthead, and I do remember there was some Iron Maiden in that. But anyways, I get into college. Guy that he's like right into Iron Maiden. He loves Iron Maiden. He's kind of a distant cousin of mine. Even we didn't know each other or anything, but we found out that we were kind of distant cousins.
Wow.
He's like, I'm really into Iron Maiden. I love Iron Maiden. You got to hear the new Iron Maiden album. I'm like, okay, bring it on over. So he brings over this.
Yeah.
Oh, and I should say too that I did know who Bruce Dickinson was because I had Nativity in Black, the Black Sabbath tribute album, which Bruce Dickinson does a version of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath on that.
It's good,
which is just phenomenal, right? It's just amazing. So he puts this on, and I'm waiting to hear that, and I'm like, what's going on with the singer? Oh, he left the band, and it's this other guy, Blaze Bayley. I could not get into this at all. I thought it was pretty bad. And this guy that came out, he was so pissed off at me that I didn't like it. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I just, it's not my thing. And this actually turned me off of Iron Maiden for at least the next decade. I just thought I was not into Iron Maiden at all. And the reason I got both of the Blaze Bayley albums, was I was at a thrift store and they were sitting there for $1 each. So I'm like, you know what?
Gotta grab them.
I'll pick them up. And I think I skimmed them both, and I'm still not that much of a fan. But yeah, it wasn't until I got satellite radio in like 2006 to listen to Howard Stern, and they would have on there at the time it wasn't Ozzy's Boneyard yet. It was Buzzsaw, had Buzzsaw and a metal thing, and they started. That's where I heard like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and I was like, oh, this stuff is good. So
there we go.
Yeah,
late bloomer, but you still came to the party.
I did. I was very late, but I didn't have the best introduction, I must say. This was not the one that you want to cut your teeth with.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. You even go back to your copy of Fear of the Dark. I mean, I think Bruce was already checked out then, because I mean, a year later he was out of Iron Maiden.
Yeah,
and then it took him a couple of years to find Baze Bailey, and I remember buying that the day it came out, because it came out the same day or the same week as Van Halen's Greatest Hits Volume 1. And so those were two must buys for me, because I had to hear Me Wise Magic,
right,
and the other stuff, and plus being a Maiden fanboy. Yeah, it was between the two Blaze Bailey ones, the first one is better. Having said that, I haven't really revisited them, but when Maiden did their Legacy of the Beast tour, they did Sign of the Cross, and one of my buddies that I went with, Metal Todd, he had no idea that was a non-Dickinson Maiden tune, which goes to show you,
right? Yeah,
Bruce could turn it into his own vibe and make it sound like he was on this studio version, right? So
yeah,
so they never really ignored that album outright. I know on this tour now they're not doing anything from those records, but they were okay. I bought them, but for me at that era, I was still going back to the Dickinson era. Like, how could you not? And I thought Bruce's solo stuff, he was out Maiden.
Yeah,
some of his stuff, and he was the voice. Really, he is the voice of Maiden. So, not taking anything away from Paul Di'Anno, but Bruce just had more longevity in that band. So,
well, they switched guitarists too, right? Wasn't Yannick? What the heck's his name?
Yannick Gers. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't he? When did he come in? Was that
came in on the No Prayer album?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the original guitarist came back, and that's why they have 12 guitarists on the band. I mean, I saw them in 2009, and there was like 16 guitarists, and they all got a solo. You had to wait. For and then finally Bruce got to sing a little bit. Then you had to wait for another guitar solo. I kid. It was an awesome show. It was amazing.
Shit. So,
okay.
God.
You had to know what you were going to get into when you did a show with me.
It's all good, man. It's your opinion. It's all. But I know what you're saying with the Blaze Bailey. I mean, I was kind of like, oh man, like this is going to take a while to grow on me, But having said that, I've never rebought the Blaze Baileys on vinyl, unless I was buying them for about maybe $15-$20, and then I'd probably grab them just to finish out the collection.
I don't know if they have been reissued.
No, I don't know either.
I don't know if they ever will. I'd be surprised. But
no.
Yeah.
But anywho, so I'll flip to one of my next book number 3 was a band that you brought up back when all your friends were listening to. What band that you just commented on?
The Tragically Hip.
There it is, kids.
Oh, wow. This is our life.
So this is obviously coincides with the documentary that came out, about a month ago now. Mm-hmm. It is a book written by the Hip, put together by the Hip. It's very well done. It's basically goes through their whole career and almost like a scrapbook form. It's almost like a Tragically Hip scrapbook. They got somebody really kept everything that they did. You got early concert ads. They got, if you watch the documentary, they have pictures of the dude playing saxophone with them. they got set lists. I even had to screenshot a couple of pictures because they had their dates from when they played Crocs and Rolls here in Thunder Bay at Frank's Place. And they have, even the printout, the cost of how much it costs to make the Up to Here album, the breakdown, how much the studio cost in New Orleans, how much they had to pay Don Smith to produce.
Wow.
How much money they were allowed per week for basically their per dems. And it's a very, very well done book. This is, I think, a company out of England. And last year they did a book, same kind of book with Def Leppard, which I got because I really like Def Leppard's first three to 4 years. And it was the same thing, almost like a scrapbook. And it's each guy telling his story as you go through each album, each tour. They, have another roadside attraction, a whole chapter in that. And they talk to the Hot House Flower guys. They talk to Midnight Oil. They talk to everybody's in this book that's ever been affiliated with them. Steve Berlin, their producer. It's very, very, very well done. I haven't really gotten into it too much, but like I said, a lot of nice pictures, and let's see here. I think here's them recording. See, they're probably Road Apples or Up to Here. A lot of, sorry for the glare, folks, but it's worth the money. I think when I first originally pre-ordered this on Amazon, it was sitting at $80, and by the time it came to release day, I got it for $50. So, and I think it's around that price still. So if you're a Hip fan and you want to get into some more detail that wasn't in the 4-hour documentary, that's the book for you.
It is remarkable that this stuff is coming out now, because talk about a band that's been tight-lipped their entire career.
Mm-hmm.
They did not open up the fourth wall very often, if at all. Nope. And a lot of it had to do with they just didn't want people to know where the songs came from or how they were done or anything like that, because they wanted you to put your own interpretation on their music.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. They talk about the issues they had with recording some of these songs and the dynamic of being in a band, which they really kept in-house, which a lot of bands don't.
Yeah.
And so it's a great book. If you're a Hip fan, you need to get this book.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we're going into the 2000s. I don't have a lot from here, so we'll be able to go through this fairly quickly. Okay. Believe it or not, I don't have Brave New World, and that is I know that is a mistake. I had it. I had a pirated copy of it for a long time, but I don't know what happened to it. So still need Brave New World. But my next album is the Rock in Rio, Iron Maiden, which was originally released in 2002. This is the 2015 reissue.
Yep.
Which I believe I got for, if I remember correctly, I got for around $25, which I don't know how, because this is a big 3-discer. It was on sale on Amazon. Again, with the lyrics and a live thing, which is live album, which is, you don't get that often. But anyways, yeah, this is a great show as well.
Yep.
Good stuff. And the next one I don't have any until A Matter of Life and Death.
That is a great album.
I agree. If I was to pick out of the later albums, this is probably my favorite from them, especially Brighter Than 1,000 Suns. I just love that song. It is 4 hours long, but it is worth the listen. That riff, they could play it. I just want to put it on a loop and just loop it over and over again.
My favorite track off there is probably The Reincarnation.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it just builds and builds and builds, and Bruce just nails that chorus. Oh, it's so good.
So I don't have another one until the most recent one.
Senjutsu.
And I only bought it because I was at Walmart and it was $12, and I said, "Oh, what the heck? I'll grab it." So their albums are so long now they can't even fit them on one CD. This is a studio album.
Yeah,
It's got like what are you, Guns N' Roses? Like, what's going on here?
difference. They're better than Guns N' Roses, and that
Well,
album has Hell on Earth, which I think I would have to put in my all-time top 10 favorite Steve Harris tracks.
I mean, it even has 2 album covers. That's how long it is. Let's put 2 album covers on it. Then my final Iron Maiden album, I got the Maiden '88.
Another great one.
Was originally a VHS release, video release.
Yep.
And I got the CD. A lot of great artwork in there. Iron Maiden always just puts a ton of work into all their artwork, even just like a little reissue like this. And it's just every angle you look at this thing, there's art in it. And one final thing, let me just quickly show my Trooper Funko.
There we go. Good one. Now that's something I don't have.
Yeah, the local shop here got it. I grabbed it for $20. So what the heck? Why not?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know why it's called the Trooper, not Eddie, but I guess this is Eddie in his Trooper outfit, I guess.
I think so. Yeah, you got the Trooper behind him for the backdrop. Yeah. So that's a pretty cool score.
Yeah.
Well,
looks nice on the shelf.
That's what you got a pretty fair, decent.
It's respectable. I don't have like a lot of the. I don't really have anything rare or.
No, you know what? I don't. I have basically. I was never one to go tracking down. Their 45s where they would put the, cover songs on the flip sides. I actually have one, which here I'm breaking my routine, is a 45 of Wasted Years.
That's cool.
And the reason I bought it is for the song on the back called Reach Out, which Adrian Smith sings. It's up on YouTube. And it's not a song written by Adrian Smith, but it's a cover tune by a friend of his, and he took the song and recorded it. And what's really cool about it is Adrian sings the lead vocal and Bruce sings the backgrounds in it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's almost like Adrian Smith almost has like a Bryan Adams-ish kind of voice.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, it's up on YouTube. Just pull it up and check it out. It's called Reach Out. So
okay,
there you go. I said I wasn't going to show any vinyl, but I showed 45. So, are you ready for my last book?
Ready.
You sure?
I think so.
Okay, so fresh off the press, just released today.
Oh, I've heard of this. I heard of the legend.
Brothers by Alex Van Halen.
And so it just released today, and you finished it already? Read through it?
I skimmed a bit of it, but so Alex Van Halen gives his side of the Van Halen story, and not going to give away too much. I mean, he's been doing a bit of press for this now. He basically already told everybody who before got the book, the story only goes up to when Dave left Van Halen in 1984. He doesn't write anything past 1984 at all. He doesn't even mention the word. Well, I think I saw the name Sammy Hagar twice in there because Alex confirms that Sammy Hagar, Ted Templeman wanted to replace Roth back in '78 with Sammy Hagar.
Oh, wow.
Is actual. I read that I think in the Ted Templeman book, and Alex Van Halen actually confirms that. And the other interesting fact is Eddie Van Halen never liked to be called Eddie. He liked to either be called Ed or Edward.
Okay.
Yeah. So he would know. He's the brother. But he talks about, from what I read in the interviews, talks about how his brother didn't take care of himself. And, like a lot of those guys, man, hard driving 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. Catches up to you no matter who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Aggravates Alex to this day that, you know, Eddie kind of checked out on him because, as Alex says, I'm the older guy. I'm supposed to go first, not you.
Right.
So, and by the sounds of it, he pulls no punches with Roth. And the other last thing I'll say about the book is, if everybody's wondering, what was he say about Michael Anthony? Not too much. He doesn't diss him, but he just kind of says that when it came to Van Halen, it was basically the three of them: Dave, Alex, and Eddie, and whatnot. And he's a bit of complimentary with his backing vocals and whatnot and stuff, but doesn't really say that much about Anthony. So he's kind of left out of the story. But there's, from what I gather, there's probably a lot of stuff about what went down with the beat guitar solo, and Dave having issues with that, and Alex having a huge problem with that as well. Which
really?
Yeah. So, you know, I haven't read that in this book. I read it. I guess he did. You know, like I said, he's been doing press interviews, and, you know, some of the interviewers have been saying that, you know, and he said, yeah, I guess with Alex, it was like, what you don't do, I don't do outside projects without you. You shouldn't be doing outside projects without me, kind of thing. And he said they fought about that whole Beat It solo for years.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, so it wasn't just a Roth thing. It was a Roth Alex versus Eddie thing for a long time. Yeah. Because he said that song and album kept us out of #1.
Right.
It all boils down to, yeah. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to digging into that book. So, yeah, I pre-ordered it, and Amazon sent the thing the other day, notice saying be here on the day of release, and sure enough, boom.
Interesting.
So, yep.
Cool. All right. Well, we are over time now.
Yeah, we went into 6 minutes overtime.
I know, but we had so much to say, I guess. I mean, I literally did not know what I was going to talk about till like 2 minutes before we started recording.
Oh, you know what? You did a great topic with Iron Maiden, so I was always up. And I mean, I added a lot of minutes to my Maiden.
I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, they're my favorite, so I had to.
Yeah.
I had to hide.
Sure. I mean, come on. Okay, everybody, thank you for watching, and don't forget to, you know, do the liking and subscribing and all that, because we don't keep to a schedule here. It could be anytime that we do an episode, and you don't want to miss it, so you got to do that stuff.
That's right.
So it pops up in your notification, because if you're relying on YouTube to pass along the show to you, forget it. It's not going to happen. We ignore the algorithm completely. We are anti-algorithm here. Yeah, we just homegrown kind of thing. Word of mouth. That's how we spread this show.
That's how, yeah, like a bad virus.
Like COVID. From mouth to mouth.
Whoa.
Okay. Okay, thank you for watching, and yeah, we'll do it again next time. Goodbye.